evening. And so my name is John, and what we will do is we will share with you a summary of the book, The Key Anti-Patterns and Patterns. We will run a Menti survey to find out a little bit about your context, and then we'll have some time for Q&A. So first of all, introductions. As I said, my name is John. I've been an Agile and Lean practitioner since the early 1990s, before the word Agile was being used with a capital A. And for most of my career, I've taken teams on the journey from traditional ways of working to more modern ways of working. Previously, I was leading ways of working across Barclays Bank globally, across 80,000 people. That was 2015 to 2018, and I'm now leading on business agility across industry sectors, helping companies globally on this journey to business agility. So that's me.
Hi, I'm Miles. I am a trainer and agility coach these days, and I've been through consulting in my career and spent 13 years at Barclays internally working with John, Simon and Zolt as well, where I was leading ways of working for the investment bank from 2015. My career path has come up through the project and program management route, having started work at IBM many years ago. Simon. Simon?
Oh, hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Yeah, good. Hi, I'm Simon. I'm a software engineer. I'm also head of enterprise architecture and developer experience at Saxo Bank in Denmark. Previously, I was at Barclays for 15 years, doing a variety of roles, but for my last 4 or 5 years there, I was working with John, Zolt, Miles, on agility. I picked up Agile before it was Agile again, when I picked up the Extreme Programming White Book in '99, and it's inspired me ever since. Thanks. Zolt.
Morning or afternoon, this is Shortbrand, and I have 15 years experience as a practitioner, coach and trainer, currently product owner for EPV SSH Dashboard and Nationwide Building Society and a business agility.
Great, thank you very much. So we will go first of all to a Menti survey. So Miles, over to you.
Sure, thanks. On the screen, I'm sharing, hopefully you can see a Menti code. You can hold up a camera, your phone to the QR code, or just go to menti.com and type that code, and you'll land on a page that I'm about to share with you in a minute. So if you pull out your phones, activate the camera, click on QR, that's the quickest way to get there, or menti.com. I'm going to flip screens now, but the menti.com code will stay available for you if you didn't capture that. What you'll see on your phone is this screen. Who'd you rather have lunch with? Just a starter question to let's get everybody into the system. Got some characters there, some of whom you might recognize. I can see 22 people in. I'll give it a couple more minutes just to let everyone in. Wouldn't want to lead the witness about who to have lunch with, so we'll keep the results hidden for now. Interested to see, I have no idea actually where you'll all be going with this. We see wildly differing results in terms of how popular Elon is versus the politicians in particular countries around the world.
My money's on Rebel Wilson.
That's who I'd choose. Okay, 36. I think that's pretty good. We'll take that. And Jacinda is winning. Fantastic. With good choice. So we seem to be stabilizing around 36, 37 people. Okay, let's get into the questions then. So the first question is, in an organization which you are currently working at, where you're trying to improve ways of working, or where you've recently been working, is there a clear articulation of why change is necessary in that organization? Are colleagues engaged in that reason, in that why? Do colleagues understand that why? Is that being talked about? And are the outcomes that would result from that change being described as well? This is what we're trying to achieve. Are those outcomes maybe being measured? Or is it perhaps a case more of we're doing Agile because Agile is good, we're doing DevOps because DevOps is good, we're doing cloud because cloud is good, or we're doing digital because digital is good, without other underpinning reasons why change is necessary? So I'll just give a minute or so, the results ticking through now. Okay, and I'll show the results. Joel, do you like to talk us through them, please?
Yes, thank you. So clear articulation of the why, just looking at the shape, it's right in the middle. So half of you have an experience of there is an articulation of why, the other half there is no articulation of why. The common thing we see is that there is no articulation of why change, especially not with colleague engagement. And looking at the number, it's also more towards the left in your case. The shape is somewhat in the middle. So no real colleague engagement, clear articulation of desired business outcomes, more towards the right. So that's good to see. There is articulation of the outcomes, measuring outcomes and making it transparent. No, so that's what we see. That's really common. It's not good to see, but that's what we see usually. So there is no measuring outcomes and no transparency. And Agile for Agile's sake, it's good to see that it is not Agile for Agile's sake in your experience, because the number and the shape is towards the left. So that's good to see.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, next question. So this relates to how the ways of working changes are being are happening in your organization, how they are being considered. So is it a case of the highest paid person's opinion is mandating that change must happen? Is it effectively that change is being inflicted to the organization? Is it that there is one particular style of working that is being applied? You must follow this particular framework or pattern. So one size fits all for the whole organization. Is the emphasis on doing Agile, following practices, over exhibiting agility? And is the change being managed as a transformation project, perhaps with an end date? It's going to get 2 years worth of investment, then you're done, then you'll move on to the next thing. And is the work being led by rollout of a scaling framework or by tooling platform, but in either case, not being culturally led? Just give a minute for you to reflect on that. Okay, over to you, Zol.
Yes, thank you. So inflict over invite, in your experience, it's more inflict than invite, which is common. It's not good to see. One size fits all, it's not so much. So it's good. It's not one size fits all in your experience, not one framework inflicted. Doing Agile over exhibiting agility. So yes, it's so it's less much of doing Agile. It's an interesting shape. It's more, it's both sides actually. So half of your experience is towards doing Agile, half is more around exhibiting agility. And transformation project with an end date. No, it's not. So that's to see it's not a start and an end date project-led transformation. Scaling and tooling led, not so much. So it's more towards the left. That's good to see. So it's not scaling framework or tooling led in your experience.
Great, thank you. Okay, so next question. And this is relating to what's working and what are the challenges in your organization. And this is the reality we're looking for, where you're at right now, what you see working well. So some of the patterns that are supporting changes to ways of working in your organization, and where the challenges are. What's the headwind that you're having to tackle? Where are the impediments that you're facing? So let's call those anti-patterns. You can enter as many as you want. If you were to type an anti-pattern, if there's a challenge, just put an AP at the front and then what it is. And if it's a pattern, if it's a positive thing that you see working well, type a P at the front and then say whatever it is. So top-down infliction of doing agile, anti-pattern. It's quite common with some of the scaling framework rollouts that we see. Jolt?
Micromanaging by people leaders, yes, command and control, micromanaging, that's an anti-pattern. Scaling to business units outside of transformation areas, is that an anti-pattern that it's looking at outside our local business unit? So that's the discussion later on that. Staying small, that's a pattern, so starting small, have a social proof. Organization not used to release regularly. Yeah, that's an anti-pattern of not releasing frequently. Agile for agile's sake, I assume this is meant to be an anti-pattern.
Seen a couple of project mindsets there, Jolt, as well. You see coming through a couple of anti-patterns around project thinking.
So we see a lot of leadership behaviors. Leaders make it or break it. Yes, it's pattern and anti-pattern pans on that. Starting small, again, it's a pattern around starting small. Funding, that's important area to look at.
Multiple different transformations, yes, we see that quite a bit. Multiple transformations starting in different places in the organization, and then without some coherent why leading them together.
And tooling led, not culture, as it came up in the Menti, that's an anti-pattern. Lack of product leadership and product ownership, yes, anti-pattern. Change fatigue, yeah, anti-pattern. Resistance to change, not respond to COVID landscape, that's interesting.
More on funding.
More on funding. Small autonomous teams, empowered teams, small teams, cross-function, multidisciplinary. Yes, that's a pattern. Institutional knowledge held by consultants. Yes, that's an anti-pattern of companies looking outside and not inside, and not looking for actually discovering the knowledge within the organization. See this a lot. Happier teams, definitely. It's a clear pattern. Alignment to purpose, strong pattern as well. The CIO loves it, yes, as the C-suite is behind it, that's definitely a strong pattern. So middle management, that's an interesting area to explore. Manage teams, yes. Siloed planning and thinking, so the whole silo organization, any silos, planning department or role-based, all anti-patterns. Local optimization, I think, yes, that's the anti-pattern. So locally optimizing instead of looking at whole enterprise agility, including all. Yes, leadership again.
I think we're pretty much, we should move on, Joel. It's looking pretty good. I mean, there's a huge amount of ideas. Thank you, everybody. I mean, we see those in many organizations, very, very consistent messages coming through here around leadership and projects and local optimizations. So I'm going to suggest we pause it there. It feels like this could flow on for a little bit longer. John, I'm going to hand back to you and flip back to the slide pack, if that's all right.
Right.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. So some themes I picked out there. Middle management was coming out as a theme. Interesting one there around discussions of the cost of the model versus the value delivered. That's an interesting one as well. So we're going to recap now on the key patterns and anti-patterns, and this is in line with the chapters in the book. I like the language of patterns and anti-patterns because patterns are, there is no one size fits all. If you wouldn't mind going back, please, Miles. There's no one size fits all. There is no such thing as best practice in the complex domain, where organizations are complex adaptive systems. You have unknown unknowns. You've not done this before. So given there is no best practice, I like the language of patterns and anti-patterns. Patterns will generally give you a tailwind, and anti-patterns will generally give you a headwind. An anti-pattern will make a hard job harder, and a pattern should make a hard job slightly less hard. It doesn't mean with an anti-pattern that you still can't make progress. You can, it's just you're making your life a whole lot harder. So that's the language. Now if we move on, please, Miles. The first pattern anti-pattern pair is around focusing on the outcomes rather than on agile for agile's sake, DevOps for DevOps' sake, cloud for cloud's sake, digital for digital's sake. Lots of organizations, and we made this mistake as well back in 2015, are focused on the means to the end rather than the end. So the mistake that we made back in 2015 is that we ran an agile transformation. We called it an agile transformation. I was the head of the agile transformation. Effectively, on my one pager, as I went to meet with leadership teams, it didn't actually say this, but effectively what it was saying was, hi, my name is John, and I'm here to make you do agile whether you like it or not. You can imagine how some people react to that. Some people would give me a hug, go, oh, thank goodness, I've been trying to do this for the last 15 years in this organization, despite the organization, not because of the organization. And you can imagine that some other people would be like, that's interesting, and get out of my office. In a very kind of, in a cultural, I'm saying yes, but really I mean get the hell out. So, Peter Senge, fifth discipline, the harder you push against a system, the harder it pushes back. So we were getting into the late majority, and, and we were encountering resistance. And I have subsequently learnt that the words convince and resistance should not enter your vocabulary if you're going about change the right way. So we pivoted. We pivoted to focus on the outcomes. Now, we were measuring the outcomes in the first place. It's just we didn't have them as the headline, and that was our mistake. And that's why now, and the title of the book, and the chant. Thank you, Dan. The chant is better, value, sooner, safer, happier, which is what you're trying to achieve. And agile, lean, DevOps, digital, cloud, systems thinking, theory of constraints, design thinking, and so on and so on and so on are all tools in your toolbox. In one particular organization or part of an organization, because of baggage from previous failed capital A, capital T agile transformations, agile was a turn-off, had a lot of baggage. So actually for them, it was smaller waterfalls. Honor the current roles and responsibilities and pursue evolutionary improvement. And we shone a light on the system. So we visualized the work in the system. We visualized where work was queuing, which hadn't been done before. We visualized flow efficiency. We did value stream mapping. And it was like, oh my goodness, I didn't realize we had this much work in progress. Oh my God, I didn't know we had this much work queued up here. And we started turning it into a pull-based system rather than a push-based system, even though it was still, still waterfall. Don't worry, no threat around capital A agile. And so it was smaller waterfalls, 12-month waterfall, 6-month waterfall, 3-month waterfall. And then it was like, hey, analysts, come and sit over here with the developers. Hey, testers, come and sit with the developers. Hey, let's go and sit close to the users, the end users, the business, our business. And then about a year later, it was pivoting from project to product and value streams. So that was getting to agility without even doing agile. So the very specific outcomes, the first is better. So better is quality. and this is building quality in. To quote W. Edwards Deming, if you don't build quality in, if you inspect it in later, that's the same as saying, I'll burn the toast and you scrape. Tell you what, let's not burn the toast in the first place. General Motors, any of you who've heard the podcast, This American Life, with the interview with some General Motors workers. In that interview, This American Life interview, the ex-General Motors workers who were working at NUMMI, which then became a joint venture with Toyota, they said that at GM, they were dragging cars off the assembly line with the engine in backwards and then fixing them in the yard. Tell you what, let's fix the engine and put it in the right way round, like, you know, before we trundle it down the line and fix it in the yard. Obviously Toyota, I'm sure you're all well aware, have an and-on cord or an and-on button. You pull the cord or press the button, and within the tact time, so within a certain allowance of time, if necessary, the whole assembly line will stop. And that and-on cord or and-on button is pulled or pushed something like on average 5,000 times a day in one factory. Last time I checked, there were 64 factories. That is a hell of a lot of continuous improvement. So that's better. The next one is value. Value is unique. It's why you're in business. If you make jet engines, your definition of value might be flying hours. Not so good in the pandemic. If you are a fashion retailer, it might be sales of luxury bags or trench coats. If you're a bank, it might be mortgages, current account, savings accounts, equity trading, and so on and so on. So value is totally unique, and it's why you're in business. And I believe that OKRs are a great way to measure value. The KR in OKR, key result, objective and key result. Your key results ideally should be your leading and lagging value measures. The next one is sooner. Sooner is the heart of agility, the heart of agile and lean, time to learning, time to pivot. So how, and this is all about optimizing for time to learning. How can we learn as quickly as we possibly can? And so that's lead time. Throughput is a count of items of value over a given period of time. Little's law, as lead time comes down, throughput will go up. My advice is don't let throughput go up by the same factor that lead time comes down. Instead, take some time to innovate, to do continuous improvement, to speak to customers. You know, it's don't be a feature factory. And the third one, the third measure that I like here is flow efficiency, which is the amount of time that work is being worked on versus work is waiting. Most large companies have a flow efficiency of only 10% for knowledge work, in my experience. Often it's lower, 6%, which means that work is waiting something like 90% to 94% of the time. And that is, you know, most organizations are not even aware of that fact. And that's where a lot of benefit can be gained. Focus where the work isn't. The next one is safer, and safer is compliance. It's governance, risk and compliance, GRC. It's agile, not fragile. It's not a case of cowboys, spurs on, Wild West. Hey, we're just because we're agile means we don't need to do anything. Like, no, there is more discipline with an approach with agility. So this is, how do you have both speed and control? Most large organizations either have control without speed, with 118 control points and 26 governance committees, or some organizations have speed without control, which is a bit risky, really. And then the next one is happier. Happier is happier customers, colleagues, citizens, and climate, because improving ways of working is not at any cost to society or to the planet. The benefits we've seen after 3.5 years, first of all, we've seen a 20 times improvement in quality. So after 3.5 years, we saw a 20-fold reduction in failure demand. We have also seen for sooner, we've seen a 3 times improvement on average to time to value and time to learning, and that's across tens of thousands of people. The best teams were 20 times improved, 20 times quicker learning, pivoting, less sunk cost fallacy. On safer, we saw a positive compliance trend, We saw a reduced impact radius. So if something did go wrong, it was a whimper rather than a bang, because it was more smaller change. And colleagues who were in those roles, such as data privacy, anti-money laundering, fraud, compliance, cyber, infosec, the anecdotal feedback was that they had gone from spending 80% of their time firefighting to 80% of their time proactively working with the product teams. And on happier, an external independent UView colleague survey showed the highest colleague engagement, and we had positive client net promoter score. So we have found these set of outcomes to work well so far in every organization, be it public, private, charity, any form of organized human endeavor which is focused on change. We have found these outcomes to be a good set of outcomes, and they balance each other. So the State of DevOps report shows that mediocre performers who reduce their lead time, top right, they do it at the expense of quality and happiness. So and that's through working people harder rather than smarter, rather than actually fixing the system of work. And the anti-pattern is doing a capital A, capital T, agile transformation. So if we move on. The second anti-pattern pattern pair is achieving big through small. So the pattern is achieve big through small. Think big, start small, learn fast. Apply an agile mindset to agility. Don't think big, start big, learn slow. You will be surprised how many organizations do take a think big, start big approach and do a big bang. You get a giant Kubler-Ross curve, peak of excitement, trough of disillusionment, grief, anger, denial. The bigger your bang, the bigger the trough, and the longer you're in the trough, and the more chaos you have. And when I speak to people who are chief risk officers or first line of defense, second line of defense in organizations, third line of defense, it's outside of your risk appetite to do a big bang. It's too risky. So instead, start small and have an S-curve adoption. Keep the gradient to change low to start with, nail it before you scale it, prove it, generate social proof, and then step up. The next one is invite over inflict. And one size does not fit all. You'll be surprised how many organizations inflict top down a one size fits all set of prescriptive practices, which is very disempowering. It's the agile industrial complex. It is doing agile with a capital A. It's the agile snake oil, silver bullet, magical cure. And also it's very demotivating. As many people have spoken about, it's not an agile mindset. It's not empowering teams. We want intrinsic motivation. In psychology, there's a thing called agency, agentic state. If someone in a position of authority demands that somebody does something, typically people will do it, but they do it in a state of agency, not really taking ownership of the outcomes. Diffusion of innovation curve, Everett Rogers, 1962, shows how humans embrace change. And again, it's an S-curve. Start with your natural champions, start with your innovators, get behind them, generate social proof, and then your early adopters, then your early majority, and so on. The fourth one is leadership behavior will make it or break it. In my personal opinion, it really is this binary. And what is essential here is role modeling the desired behavior. Role modeling, psychological safety, and servant leadership. I've seen leadership teams, I'm sure we all have, and I saw some comments in the Menti survey. Some leadership teams will effectively are like, do as I say, not as I do, effectively sitting around the virtual table with their arms crossed, saying basically, go do this thing, but I'm not going to change. And that behavior is very clear to colleagues. Psychological safety is essential for people to experiment and improve. If there is a culture of fear, people won't step out of line, people won't experiment, people won't try to improve. So psychological safety, Project Aristotle at Google showed it was a #1 determinant of high-performing teams. And servant leadership, which is supporting lines over reporting lines. Dear team, I'm here to support you. I'm here to help you. How can I help? How can I help remove impediments from out of your way? Turn the org chart upside down. The next one is build the right thing, product over project. This is the pivot from project to product to long-lived teams, long-lived multidisciplinary teams on long-lived value streams aligned to the customer with long-lived products. And the pivot from Gantt charts with milestones and a focus on output and predetermined solutions to outcome hypotheses and testing outcome hypotheses. Miles, over to you for the next one.
Sure, the next one is governance, risk and compliance. So building the thing right. This is keeping your organization safe from cyber intrusion or from other kinds of risks that can arise within regulatory guardrails. So John mentioned psychological safety earlier, equally important in operating with safety. Also, though, within large organizations, we see the characteristically a highly siloed risk and control organization. There's fraud, there's anti-money laundering, there's enterprise architecture. There are many, many different functions, all of whom will need to have some kind of say, some kind of understanding of what changes are happening. And that really can slow down your pipeline, your flow, if your teams are needing to navigate all of the complexity of a highly siloed risk and control organization. We put a stopwatch on a Hello World application from code complete to live in production, and we timed it going through the entire end-to-end governance lifecycle for that. The outcome was around 3 months of elapsed time for that to happen, and 20-man days of project management facilitation to navigate all of those silos. So the pivot here is to cross-functional, long-lived safety teams, analogous to cross-functional delivery teams, which they pair with a value stream, so that the people in the value stream always know who they can talk to, and there's a good level of communication and context setting between the two. And coupled with a minimum viable compliance, lightweight process for managing that engagement, really helps people flow fast and get the right thing built. Simon, over to you.
Thanks, Miles. Okay, so the next pattern is, it's about software. Too Safe and Happier is not a book about technology, but Chapter 7 is. Mark Anderson in the mid-2000s talked about how software was eating the world, and it's pretty much eaten the world now. So every organization does need to technical excellence in the software that they use to operate their organization. So 4 anti-patterns and pattern pairs here. The first is about going faster, leading to go slower. This is the core one here. Many organizations become feature factories. They neglect the fact that either they're old organizations, so they have a load of technical debt, or they are relatively new organizations, but as they become feature factories, they make compromises and they build up technical debt over time. So the pattern here, the tailwinds to help you is go slower to go faster. Be deliberate about ensuring that you balance building features as well as ensuring that you are both paying off technical debt and understanding what technical excellence practices you should be adopting. They may be novel ones, they may not to do with your old technical debt, but they may be new practices that can make you go even faster. The next one is what we call agile hollow shell. Martin Fowler calls it flaccid scrum. It's basically neglecting the fact that agile practices come from software development. And if you're developing software, of course, you can use agile practices outside of software development. But if you're developing software, don't just do Scrum or don't just do stand-ups and user stories, but do the technical practices, do the test-driven development, do the continuous refactoring, do the more modern technical practices like mob programming or pair programming. So that pattern is continuous technical excellence. Do the engineering practices that go with Agile. The third pattern goes up above team and into organization, into enterprise architecture, into the things that I do day by day now. And it's the anti-pattern, the headwind is a misalignment of teams and architecture, where you've got teams going one way, let's say an API team and a database team and a front end team, and yet you're trying to reorganize into value streams, and you reorganize your teams, but your architecture is still coupled to that old legacy organization. This is an observation made by Mel Conway in the late 60s. More recently, the team topologies guys are co-IT revolution. People have talked about this as well. It's that as you re-architect or reorganize, you need to do the both hand in hand, and it's going to be slow. It's going to be deliberate. Again, it's not going to be an overnight change to a brand new architecture aligned to your value streams, but you have to bear that in mind as you want to get radically faster. The final one is one that I'm certain people will have seen. It's when a DevOps transformation, for example, comes with just tools. The anti-pattern is tools over people. It says, great, we've got Jira, we've got Git, we've got Jenkins, our DevOps transformation is done, it's over. The pattern is, of course, to say, no, none of this is tools first. None of this is technology first. All of this is always people first. And the point of these technologies, the point of these automations, we say the pattern is smart people and smart teams with robot friends. The point of the technologies, the robots, is to get the drudge work and the error-prone work out of the way of people and to let them deliver better value sooner, safer, and happier. Thanks, Jot.
Thank you, Simon. So chapter 8 is about creating a learning organization. So this is about the anti-pattern is information learning silos where information knowledge is lost in multiple handoffs. Another anti-pattern is around the bubble effect, which is so information knowledge is in social bubbles, whether it's role-based silos or different team construct bubbles where members don't share information beyond the teams, beyond the bubble. And so that knowledge and information discoverability is limited within the organization. And when people move on, then knowledge is lost forever. And weaponized metrics where the mind is, there are set targets, for example, how agile are you? And meeting those targets instead of focusing on maximizing outcomes and learning. So pivoting from that to optimizing for learning. So at individual team level, team of team levels, and organizational level, there are many practices in the book listed. Connecting these disconnected learning bubbles, again, with communities of practices, with conferences, running an award on conferences, different collaboration platforms listed in the book, and measure for learning, so that providing a dashboard with self-serve capability and drill-down capabilities to all colleagues at all levels to measure, to get insights on better value, sooner, safer, happier outcomes. Back to you, John.
Great, thank you very much. So in terms of why we wrote this book, we want to share lessons learned the hard way. We've made the mistakes so that hopefully other people don't have to. There's also learnings from around about 100 companies in this book. Each chapter has a case study. So, so part of the motivation is to share our learnings so you don't have to make the same mistakes. Second, to help create more humane ways of working, because we know that engagement goes up. We know this is a more humane way of working instead of the previous feast to famine waterfall type approach, which is not so humane. We believe in business agility over doing agile, genuine business agility, which is, for those of you that have read the book, you'll know that I keep hammering home this point around, agile is not about agile. Lowercase a agile is not about uppercase a agile, and it stop using that word. It's about being nimble. The audience is leaders at all levels in all roles, those helping and those hindering. So this book, the idea of this book is, you could be in finance, you could be in marketing, you could be in sales, you could be an agile coach, you could be in IT, you could be in product or pricing, but you can pick this book up, and it's the idea is that at the beginning there's some material to help those new to this topic to understand what this topic is about, and hopefully for those who are gurus and very experienced, hopefully there's some new stuff in there as well, in particular kind of towards the back end of the book, maybe around governance, risk and compliance, for example. And the idea is that the hindering point is you can use this book, you know, if you're struggling with an anti-pattern in your organization, I would love it if this book could help to amplify your advice within the organization, and like, look at pattern 3.4, look, or 3.2, look, we should be doing this. We're doing anti-pattern 3.2. We are planting a tree for every 4 books sold. So, you know, Happier includes the planet. We are practicing what we preach. This is coming out of author royalties. We are giving back a 10 times carbon benefit, and that's all forms of books sold, physical and electronic. And we have a community. So if you soonersaferhappier.com, we've got some public meetups, BVSSH meetups globally, covering Americas, Europe and Asia Pacific. So now we have time for Q&A.